So she has been mentioned as a possible VP for Donald Trump. She's 53 years old, obviously a Republican, ran for the governorship of Arizona, lost by 17,000 votes, an amazingly close race out there. She has sued the election commission over those results. There is one, the Supreme Court, Arizona Supreme Court, heard it, and there's one outstanding event, signature verification. So that is in court and has not been resolved as of yet. Okay, so Maricopa County, that's Phoenix, they have allegedly violated signature verification. Supreme Court is going to assess that. So that'll take a little time, I guess. Anyway, Kari Lake joins us now from London, England, where she was telling me before the interview, her sister lives over there. So you were lucky enough to see King Charles had that big thing on his head. You know, I thought he was going to get a concussion wearing that big thing.
That big thing, I love it. The crown, yes. Well, we've been in Europe. I was doing some of the speaking at the CPAC event in Hungary, which is a beautiful, amazing country. Budapest is one of the most beautiful, safe cities I've ever had the pleasure of touring through. And then we decided to swing through London. We've done some media over here and to see a little bit of history unfolding. Like you, Bill, I love history. And I'm so glad that we broke free from the tyrants, you know, back in 1776. It's wonderful to see history in a moment like that. And it was great to be with all of the ever so polite and charming folks from England, the British people, on this historic occasion.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you had a good time over there. I lived in England for a year. I respect their traditions. But if it were me, I would have thrown Charles's crown into Boston Harbor. I mean, I'm not big on being a subject to anybody, as you probably know. Have you?
Well, between me and you, between just me and you, I agree with you on that.
Yeah,
and
I mean, most Americans, we're happy we're not subjects, we're citizens.
Right.
Have you discussed the vice presidency with Donald Trump? I know you were down in Mar-a-Lago a few weeks ago.
No, you know, I talk to President Trump quite frequently. And as you know, I'm a big supporter of his. And we haven't talked about that. I think one time the word vice president ever came up, and he was actually giving me kudos for an answer I'd given many, many months ago during the campaign when the press was starting to hound me about, are you going to leave if you're elected governor and become vice president? And I said something like, well, I'm flattered that you would ask that, because just a few months ago, you were acting like I wasn't even worthy of running for governor. And now all of a sudden, you're worried I'm going to, you know, win and leave to become vice president. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be your worst nightmare for 8 years. I'm going to be the press worst nightmare for 8 years as governor. And so he chuckled at that and thought it was a funny answer. Frankly, I don't think he needs a vice president. If there's ever one president who's been strong enough to lead without one, it's Donald Trump.
Yeah, but I got to tell you, I know that situation pretty well, as I'm sure you understand. Pence helped him. I mean, that fell apart at the end over the crazy election stuff. But Pence helped Trump, and they were in frequent contact. Pence wasn't Kamala Harris, who they just want to get out of the way. Pence was smart. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see. I think Trump would like to put a woman on the second.
Think about Kamala Harris, though. She might be hated more than Joe Biden. So maybe that's a good key for him to have. That's a bad word,
though. Nobody should hate.
People go, wait a minute, which one's worse?
Nobody should hate Kamala Harris. She's incompetent, in over her head. Those are all true. Now, you're an interesting study to me, because you anchored the news on a Fox affiliate in Phoenix for 20 years. Everybody in the state knew you. And for people to say, well, why would you want to run, or you shouldn't run? I mean, you know more about the state than probably anybody else, having that kind of experience on your sheet. When you were involved in the campaign against Hobbs, 2 women running, the Arizona Republic and some of the other media were against you. Do I have that right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got the Trump treatment. I got the Trump treatment in the media from the start. I'm an outsider.
Why though? Arizona isn't California. It's not New York, where I am. Arizona is kind of a in the middle state with a very big conservative base. So why were they after you?
Well, they don't want outsiders, Bill. I mean, let's face it. There's the Uniparty and there's America First. And sad to say, I hate to say it, there's a lot of Republicans in the Uniparty, and the people behind our corrupt elections were these rhino Republicans. And President Trump is having to go to battle with some of them as well. They don't want outsiders. They want to protect the political apparatus as it stands. They're the political elite. They're worried about padding their own pockets, lining their pockets, and they really don't care at all about the American people. And that's why President Trump was such a breath of fresh air. He came in and immediately started fighting for the American people. And that's why they're doing everything they can to try to stop him.
Okay.
He is an existential threat to
but let's talk about you. I mean, Trump, it's plenty of airtime. Let's talk about you. I was surprised you lost because of the border. I mean, Arizona is a much smaller state than Texas, which is a much lower budget, and the impact of millions of migrants coming into this country has influenced every single person in your state. Yet Hobbs, who won by, minuscule margin, I don't know why she was even in the game, because she was soft on border enforcement. Are there that many Arizonans who are okay with this chaos on the border?
Absolutely not. They're horrified. My number one policy issue was I have had the strongest and have the strongest border policy the country's ever seen. It was leaning very heavily on the United States Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, which allows the states to protect the border and protect their citizens when there's an invasion, and we have an invasion on our border. I know you're saying I lost, and that's fine. You can say that. This is why we're fighting it in the courts. They sabotaged Election Day. They intentionally printed the wrong ballots on Election Day, and they had 61% of our polling locations that were non-functioning on Election Day because they knew the Republicans were showing up to vote. And that's why we're fighting it. When you have corrupt elections, we have deadly consequences, and the deadly consequences are
listen, all I'm doing is asking questions on the record, because the record is she's sitting there in Phoenix as the governor. And you may, if you prevail on the voter verification, then all hell breaks loose in Arizona. But we'll wait and see. But I don't even think it should have been close. I think you should have won that election. But see, I don't understand the demographics of Arizona, because if it were me, I would have voted for you only because of the immigration. I don't care about anything else, because that had been so dramatic and adversely affected Arizona so much. But there were millions of people who voted for your opponent, and I can't understand their mindset at all.
Well, this is why we have to get to the bottom of how corrupt our elections are. They were corrupt in 2020 and 22, and I'm fighting it. I will not back down. We know what happened in Arizona. We know we actually won by a landslide. It wasn't a slim margin, but we'll continue to fight that in the courts.
All right, that'd be the biggest scandal in American history if that is borne out. But that's a big if.
It's this on our hands, and in 3 days' time, when Title 42 is stripped away, we are going to see an invasion, and it's going to shock America. It's going to shock people.
Absolutely. And the Biden White House is going to take it again because of their incompetence, and that's all it is.
Not even incompetence, Bill. They're partners with the cartels, okay? When you go down to
they're not partners with the cartels.
No. They're not doing anything on the border to secure the people.
They're not doing anything, but they're not in bed with the cartels. Joe Biden doesn't care, number one, and isn't, at this point in his life, able to problem solve on any level. So
he told everybody, come on over. The borders are wide open.
He absolutely encouraged it, and the cartel picked that up, and the drugs are coming in, and the people are coming in, and it's a disaster. And just for that reason alone, Biden shouldn't even run again. But we live in a country that's changing dramatically. Last question for you. If you don't prevail in your lawsuit against Arizona in the vote, and you don't get the nod or the call from Donald Trump, and I wouldn't put it past him to contact you about the VP. What are you going to do?
Well, I'm not somebody who's waiting to be VP. I mean, I love President Trump because I love his policies. I love what he did. I love that he's a fighter. We need more fighters in the Republican Party. And frankly, in politics, we need people who will step forward and fight for the people. And so I'm doing whatever I can to help him. I absolutely feel that he's the best
So you'll
person.
campaign for him and you'll be involved in the Trump 24.
I may, if we do not get the results the people of Arizona deserve in this election case, I may consider running for Senate. That's no secret. I've talked about that before.
Okay.
It's in the back of my mind. We have a Senate seat that's going to be a three-way race between Kirsten Sinema, who is a Joe Biden puppet, and also between Ruben Gallego, who is a Marxist, socialist, and maybe even hinging on communist. And we need somebody who's going to fight for the people of Arizona. So that's something I'm
All right.
seriously.
We'll take a look. And when do you have to declare for that if you're going to do it?
Early next year, I think by April or something like that.
By
So
24.
there's really
So you got time. All right, Ms. Lake, we really appreciate you coming on, and you're welcome anytime. So just
You're
you
awesome,
got
Bill.
something you want to say, or when the final Supreme Court ruling comes down in Arizona, and it's the Supreme Court of Arizona, by the way, that's considering this case. We're happy to have you back.
We're going to take this all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court as well.
Good.
And I'd love to come on when we do that. And we just have a book that just came out. You can
That'll be
find it on
fascinating.
Amazon.
Listen, I would do the same thing if I believed that I didn't get a fair shake. I would do exactly the same thing. And we appreciate it. Safe trip home from London. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate
Okay.
it.